Hello, student. Good afternoon. I want to welcome you to this e-learning class on consumer behavior MKT 414. I am quite sure that the idea behind this e-learning, or sometimes we can call it online class, is not strange to you. It is born out of the challenge that is facing the world right now, where everybody has to get back home in the name of safety, as we are trying to run away from the infection of the pandemic, coronavirus. And I pray that by God's grace, we shall get over this. So please, as we try to make good use of the opportunity that we have, I want to implore you to try as much as you could to make the best use of this privilege. So today, from what we have discussed so far before the lockdown, I'm sure you know, our next topic should be consumer motivation. Consumer motivation. And so today we're going to be discussing it, consumer motivation. As it were, looking at the synopsis itself, we are expected to work in line with the learning objective. Now, for this particular course in question, students are expected to have a good understanding of a motivation meaning, the process and element of motivation, motivation types, conflicts in motivation, and then we have to also consider the theories of motivation. In line with that, frustration definition is expected to be considered, the process of frustration, the treatment of frustration, and finally the marketing implication as well as the application of frustration in the world of marketing. So in that line we go. If we cannot finish this outline in a lecture, we might have to divide it into two. Well, let's see how far we can go into this class. Talking about motivation per se, the general knowledge is this, that modern marketing practice today has compelled every marketer to be able to provide the need and the want of the market to the point of satisfaction. And then when you are trying to meet the need of your target market or the need of your consumer to the point of their satisfaction, you should also have at the back of your mind that the practice of efficiency and effectiveness for business survival is equally important for you to pay attention to. And then apart from that, it is important for us to note that while you are trying to do survival strategies for your consumer to be satisfied, consumer identification and analysis is highly required for successful marketing. We need to be able to analyze our consumers. We need to be able to identify them. As a matter of fact, you must identify them before you begin to analyze who they are, what they are, how they are, and even where they are. So part of the process of doing the identification and analysis of consumer nature is this consumer motivation. Then the real issue here is for us to be able to understand why consumer buys in the direction of how consumer buy. So talking about consumer motivation, we are trying to dig deep into having a good understanding of why consumer behaves a particular way, why they patronize a particular brand, why they choose to patronize a particular store, or why they do a particular thing in favor or against a particular consumption pattern. So, and then while we're doing that, we have to do it in line with how it is done. So that is our focus for today in this topic of consumer motivation. And then we said in the learning objective, we should be able to actually give a good description of what motivation is all about. Basically, across the globe, there are numerous definitions abound for motivation generally. But at least we should be able to break it down to our own level and talk about it in such a way that at least, even if we are not an expert to the extent that we can begin to talk of a alternate definition, we should be able to give a simple description of what motivation is all about. And then the word motivation is actually synonymous to the word motive. And then when you're looking at motive from grammar, you're looking at intention, the intention behind a particular step being taken. So motives are easily described through what we call need. The need in a person. I need to be superior. I need to eat. I need to get to the top. I need to be accepted. Need of man are numerous. And then from the knowledge of economics, it is generally believed that it is even insatiable. So what we are saying now is any man in life has a motive. And then one of the easiest way to describe the motive in any person is the need of that particular person or the mind of the person. So is it that we are looking at motive from the angle of need, or we are looking at motive from the angle of the mind, the mindset? So that is what motivation centers around. And yet, it is always difficult for us, if not all the time, but sometimes difficult to determine the mindset of an average consumer. And the only way we can go about that, or the only alternative or techniques that are available for us to discover the mindset or the need of an individual or a target consumer, include through projection, projective technique. Try to project the need into the life of a particular person, and then you begin to read the possibility of his mindset. Then apart from that, we have sentence completion. As a marketer or as a researcher, we tend to know the mindset or the need of a particular individual that we want to really determine what motivates the person to perform through sentence completion. We try to make a sentence halfway and we expect the person to complete it. Then the options or the choice of completion can help marketers to determine the intention of such a target person. Then apart from that, we have the role playing. And role playing has to do with making people to partake in a particular event. In the course of exercising or partaking in an event, you tend to see the direction towards the direction towards which a particular person is trying to favor. So role playing can also be used to determine the mind of a person or the need of a person. Then you have word association. We tend to sometimes make people to look at choice of what they use, how it relates to the things that they do. So we can also use that to determine the motive of an individual or the motive of our target consumers. Then apart from that, we can use pictorial interpretation, among many other techniques that we can use to determine the mindset. And don't forget that the last time when we were discussing the model of consumer behavior, the popular model that we mentioned is the black box model, where we actually describe the black box model as the mind of the person, which is usually difficult to know. So ordinarily, the mind of a person or the mind of your target consumer is difficult to determine. But as marketers, you need to go extra mile by adopting either of these techniques that I've just mentioned or that we have just discussed, talking about the projective technique, projecting into the mind of a person, sentence completion, we have the role playing, we have the word association, we have the pictorial interpretation of a person's being. Then, another thing that is important for us to pay attention to is the fact that we really need to understand why and how. Why alone will not help us to get to the root of motive of a target person or target consumer. But having known the why, it is equally important for us to pursue to the point of knowing the how they go about their why. So all of this tied together give us a clearer picture or a better picture of what a motive of an individual is. Now, let's go to continue our description of a motivation. I said it earlier that scholars across the globe had given a series of definitions about motivation, and then it is important for me to say at this point that we might not be able to exhaust all definitions across the globe. I'm sure you know that no individual can study all materials of knowledge that is available in the discipline. But for the purpose of this class, let's just consider one or two of the definitions that abound on the world or the world of academics as far as this particular course, consumer behavior, is concerned. Talking about motivation, motivation has been said to represent the inner drive that shows or that express the goal direct arousal, that shows the direction of the goal in a particular person, is an inner drive. Two things are involved there: inner drive, and then it gives direction to the goal to be achieved. And the goals to be achieved from the inner mind. So two things are involved there. Please pay attention to that. And that particular definition was actually given by three authors uh, in their work in 2004 by Arnold, Price, and Sicken, 2004. They look at motivation from the angle of inner drive that gives direction to goal that is being aroused in an individual. Another definition that has been given, and of course trending, is that which was given by Skivman and Kanuk in 2006, and they said motivation is just a driving force. They said that motivation is a driving force within an individual, and then that propel an action. So it is not just an ordinary driving force. It is not just an ordinary driving force within an individual, but that particular driving force must propel an action. So bulk of the things that we do, at the time when you decide to buy a particular thing, or you decide to buy from a particular store, or you decide to behave a particular way, there is an inner drive that is propelling it. And that inner drive is propelling it towards achieving a particular goal. That is how motive works. Then, at this point, I equally want us to go to the next outline that we are expected to consider, and that is the process of motivation. The process of motivation. But this I need to tell you, the process of motivation is not complex. Just pay attention to where it starts and pay attention to where it where it ends. I beg your pardon. Pay attention to where it starts and then pay attention to where it ends. Then the activities between the starting point and the end point are easy to get based on the definitions that we have talked about. The beginning of a motive in terms of process is the need. But what type of need? At this point, we're talking of the unsatisfied need, the unfulfilled need. Needs that are fulfilled, you don't tend to be motivated to want to run after them again. But needs that have not been fulfilled, then consumers tend to want to run after such need for it to be fulfilled, for it to be achieved. So the starting point of motive is unfulfilled need, and the end point of motive or motivation is goal fulfillment, which is the target of the drive. Goal fulfillment, it is the target of the drive. So now I said earlier that a good understanding of a motivation process is easy when you have a good understanding of the beginning and you have the end point. And I did say that the beginning is unfulfilled need and the end point is goal satisfaction. In between, certain activities happen. And those activities that happen is this. At the point when you have unfulfilled need, you tend to have what we call tension. The tension is the drive, or what you can also refer to as the zeal to get something achieved, to fulfill that particular need that has not been fulfilled in you. Tension. So something will begin to arouse in you and you begin to think and you begin to imagine. And thereafter you move to drive. The drive is the will, the inner will to achieve that which has not been achieved. So that means by implication, we are saying the starting point of motive process is unfulfilled need, then you move to tension, then from tension you move to drive. Then once the drive works in place, then the next thing will be to go to action. But before going into action, in between the drive and the action, some things also happened. And those things that happen is this. You tend to want to ask questions. Learning is coming into play. And don't forget, we have discussed learning in one of our topics in the past before the lockdown. And then in the course of learning, there is what we call cognitive process. The cognitive process or the cognitive aspect of this thing is just simply talking about the value or the amount of knowledge that you possess concerning that driving you to achieve a particular goal. You already know you have a need, there is a tension, you're already looking at, this is a state of lack, and then the drive is saying you can achieve it through this or through that. There are numbers of options. Then you begin to ask questions here, you go through learning, you look into this, you look into that. Then in the course of going through learning of different things, and what do you call learning? By simply asking your friend question, you are learning something. You are hungry and you are asking your friend, where can you get food to buy to eat? You really need to satisfy the unfulfilled need of hunger. You're already learning. And then by the time you ask 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 person, you discover that you have gone through process of learning so many things. Knowledge are accumulated. Then the way you begin to process the knowledge that has been accumulated, the way you understand it, the way you apply it, is what we simply refer to as the cognitive process. Where you begin to sieve all that you have gathered, the cognitive, your mindset, your understanding, the knowledge that you process, and how you apply it is basically what we are talking about when we mention the cognitive process. And then the moment you are able to tidy up that particular area, then the next thing is you implement, you go into action as a person. You act, you take step to achieve the goal. And then when you take the step and your expectations have been met, then you discover that the tension will reduce. The tension to satisfy that particular unfulfilled need will drop. But that is not the end of man. You discover that at the point where a particular tension is dropping, then another one is coming up. And that is why it is generally being said that human needs are insatiable. It cannot be completed, it cannot be completely satisfied. So when you achieve a particular goal, then you go to another thing. The tension for that particular goal comes down, then another tension begins to rise. And that is why in the process of motivation, you will always see an arrow that will move from goal fulfillment back to tension. So while it is moving, the tension has reduced. And then while it is reducing and returning back to the point of tension immediately after fulfilling, that is to tell you that another need is about coming up. So something will always motivate another need. And basically, the summary of that, or the technical aspect of that is this. You have a motive to satisfy unfulfilled need, and you begin to develop tension, you develop the drive, you learn what you needed to learn, you gather the knowledge, you implement the action, and then you fulfill the goal in question. The moment you fulfill that particular goal, the fulfillment of that particular goal is already giving you another motivation that this is achieved. Then let's go to the next thing. This has been achieved. I need to move to the next level. That is the starting point of another motivation. And that is why the tension arrow will drop, tell you it has reduced because a particular need has been fulfilled. Then while it is going, it will always end at the point of tension again. Tension will begin to ask question, what next? What next? What next is now propelling you to another motive. That is how motivation operates in consumers. Then let's quickly go to types of motivation. Because the time is limited. Talking about types of motivation, we are looking at a positive motive, the negative motive, we have the rational motive, we have the emotional motive, we have achievement motive, we have a power motive, uniqueness motive, we have affliction motive, and then we have esteem motive. All of these are simple as their phrase of word stand. Positive motive makes you to go towards a particular thing. Negative motive chases you away from it. Something that discourages you from approaching a particular thing, that is negative motive. But something that propels you or pushes you towards approaching a particular store, approaching a particular brand is a positive motive. Then when you're talking of rational motive gives caution, makes you to take extra caution in implementing the tension and the drive in you towards achieving your goal. Then you have the emotional, when sentiment are usually attached to motive for doing a particular thing. Sentiment attached to motive for doing a particular thing. That is when you look at motivation from the angle of emotion. Then you have achievement motive. The tendency to want to prove that you're an achiever. You want to get to the top. You want to get something achieved. You want to get something done. That is a motivation too. So we call it an achievement motive. Then you have the power motive. The power motive is such that works in a particular person to show that I am superior. The tendency to show superiority is what we call the power motive. Then you have uniqueness. Uniqueness, you want to distinguish yourself. So, and you need to pay attention to the fact that power motive and uniqueness motive tend to have thin line in between them. Power shows that you have the strength to achieve it. But uniqueness will take you to the level where, apart from having the power, you want to show that you are different from others. You are superior in a particular way. That is uniqueness motive. And then you have affliction motive. This is the kind of motive that prepares you to want to do something because of the bad experience you have had. Bad experience often give us the motive to do something. Then you have esteem motive, which is that level where you want to say, I am above all. And that is the only reason you're doing what you are doing. You want to get to the level where nobody has gotten to. So those are the types of motive. And quickly, when you're talking of motive, in consumers too, or in every individual, we don't have a conflict of motive. Motive do fight themselves. That is what we mean, conflict of motive or motive conflicts. Motive fight each other. And then when you're talking of motive that fight each other, when we're talking of types of motive, I did mention that we have a positive motive, we have negative motive. The same way, when we want to talk about a conflict of motive, there is what we call the approach of conflict. There is what we call the avoidance of conflict, conflict in motive. Approach of conflict in motive, avoidance of conflict in motive. So basically, when we want to talk about the conflict of motive, we are looking at one way, two way, three ways. The three are this. One, approach conflict. I repeat, approach conflict. The approach conflict is a situation where the consumer or a particular consumer or an individual has the tendency or is being pushed based on available resources of facts or information or knowledge gather or cognitive process and the like that we have explained under the process of a motivation. That thing that you have gathered is pushing you towards a particular store, towards a particular brand, in favor of a particular store or in favor of a particular brand. That is when you say you have approach. That is positive. The motive is saying go, and every signal is saying it favors you. But there is attention that you must pay. There is attention that you must pay to something under approach. We are saying it is positive, and it's saying it is favorable, and we're saying it draws you closer to a particular store or a particular brand. But in this context, you should also remember that two options or three options or four options are involved. One, it's beyond one option. 2, 3, 4, 5 options would be involved. And then when these options are involved, it suggests to us that as a consumer, you have different alternatives, different choices to actually choose from. And at that point, you will need to go through a process of gathering knowledge, gathering information, and then processing all that you have gathered in your cognitive mind. Then at the end of the day, what we are saying under the approach conflict is this. You have 2, 3 options. And then the 2, 3 options are giving you favorable signals. The 2, 3 options that you have, having gathered your knowledge, having gathered your learning, having done all you needed to do, all the 3 options are giving you favorable signals. This story is saying we have something good to offer you, something good to offer, and something good to offer. And that's why sometimes you want to buy something and you find yourself within the difficult situation of saying or taking a decision, where do I buy from? Or what brand do I really choose? Which institution do I really need to choose? If you are talking of securing admission into an institution, sometimes you are looking at school 1, school 2, school 3. This one is a federal school. The school fee will be cheap. This one is a state school. The school fee will not be cheap, but this one is closer to my house in case of crisis. And then you begin to see a particular positive attraction in all of the options that are available. That is when we say we have approach, conflict. This one is saying come. This one is saying come. And that also is also saying come. And in Yoruba land, we say when you have a situation like that, we'll call it the something is doing you kame. This one is attracting you, and this one is attracting, and that one is attracting. And then at that point, even as consumers, you need to be very careful. Then as marketers, you need to identify it from the consumer. Okay, this is the kind of person that I want to deal with. This one like attraction. Then all you needed to do is to develop a strategy that is in line with a stick and carrot, and then you have a way under the approach conflict. Then the second one is avoidance conflict. When you're talking of avoidance, from the word avoidance, it means it's saying go away from my hand. It's saying go away from my hand. It's pushing you away. Something that is saying giving you fear to approach a particular store. That is what we are saying under the avoidance. And then you're saying you have 2 options of store or 2 options of brand or 3 options of store or 3 options of brand. Then under that situation, the consumer is having a conflict of motive of saying, okay, the 2 of the stores or the 2 of the brand that I have, they are not even good. They don't have anything good to offer me. So let me just choose one out of the worst situations. I have 2 worst situations, or I have 3 worst situations in my hand. All of them are not encouraging me. They are pushing me away. But then there is a need in me that I must satisfy. And this need can only be satisfied by approaching either of these options or choices available for me to choose from but are not friendly. So I'm compelled to choose from the 2 or the 3 bad opportunities that are bound. So that is avoidance, conflict. You are in a state of confusion to choose from one among the 2 or 3 that are not even good enough. So that is avoidance conflict. Then the third one is the approach avoidance. The approach avoidance conflict is one store is saying come, another one is saying go away. Then in such situation, the consumer is at ease to make decisions. The one that is giving you a signal of favor, you simply choose from. And that is approach avoidance conflict thing. Then we have theories of motivation. Theories of motivations abound. But permit me to quickly mention them, but maybe we have to create another class where we begin to talk about theories of motivation in detail. We have the Sigmund Freud concept of drive. We have the Kajal concept of a archetype. We have the Henry Murray list of human need. We have the Asbach theory of hygiene. Then we have this popular one, Abraham Maslow concept of a need of a hierarchy of need. So need hierarchy by Abraham Maslow. We also have that one. And usually by the time you even consider, if you have a good understanding of Abraham Maslow hierarchy of need, you have a good understanding of what motivation and the movement of motivation in life, what it look like. Because all of them, they seems to be talking about the same thing, but different way. So we'll find a time to talk about the theories of motivation in detail some other time. To save our time, let's quickly look at the marketing applications of motives. Marketing applications of motive. In terms of motive, for marketers to be able to determine the motive of the target market or the target consumers, and having done all that we have talked about today, we really need to have a good understanding of how to handle it, how to apply the knowledge of marketing to achieve the marketing business thing. One of them is product positioning. The moment you understand the mindset of your consumer, that this one is a achievement motive person, you know how to position the market to him. And that is why sometimes the same product has been sold to different consumers at different prices. Then we have another one is market segmentation, division of what you have to offer into different classes of markets for different classes of people. Because the consumers will never be motivated or will never be moved or drive by the same motive at the same time at all times. So market segmentation is important. Then we have target marketing strategies. Then apart from segmenting the market, you can divide the entire market into different segments. You should also have your target, because no single company can satisfy the entire need of the entire market. So that is very, very important when it comes to the marketing application of consumer motivation. Permit me to say at this point, we have discussed so much about motivation, but there is this particular angle of motivation that is also important, and that is frustration. Frustration. As a matter of fact, in the process of motivation, when we said process of motivation, we did explain that motive will start from unfulfilled need, then go to tension, then to drive, then to action, then to go fulfillment. So in the process, there is always the tendency for an individual person or a consumer to experience a block, hindrance, obstacle along the way, or in an attempt to satisfy a particular drive. At the point where the obstacle comes in or the hindrance comes up, that is where we will say that frustration has the tendency to come up in a person. And I'm sure you must have heard the word frustration before. The word frustration, you must have heard about it before. It is also applicable in the field of marketing, particularly this particular course, consumer behavior. A target consumer can be frustrated in an attempt to patronize your brand. And as marketers, you need to have good understanding of how individuals or your target market can be frustrated such that you can prepare hide for it. But permit me to let you know that we will stop here for the reason of time. Then another class, we will have to discuss frustration. We will have to discuss frustration. So I wish you good luck and best wishes as we meet during the next class. Thanks and God bless you. Remember, the order of the day is social distance. Hygiene level must be very high, and keep yourself safe at all times. Thanks and God bless you.